Okay, in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to make your strum sound smoother and faster and cleaner by having a close look at the 4 components that make up the perfect strumming technique. So, let's get started. The perfect strum has 4 components. Think of these as the 4 P's of strumming. You've got posture, in other words, the shape of your hand while you're strumming. Secondly, you have path, the motion of that hand or the path that it traces through the air. Third is position, where that hand ends up making contact with the string. And fourth is pressure, how much force is behind the strum. And we're going to look at each one of those components in this lesson, starting with posture. Posture is the shape of the hand as you strum. And I haven't really changed the basic shape of my hand since I started learning this instrument as a child. And the way I was taught was this: take your strumming hand and make an L shape. Then just let all the air out, just relax, like this. Now take the fingers that you're not going to use and curl them into the palm of your hand. You don't have to make a fist or clench or anything like that, just curl them into the palm of your hand. And then take your thumb and gently touch at the first crease of your index finger. That thumb is going to end up being essentially the shock absorber, so that when your index finger hits the string, the thumb is going to absorb a little bit of that impact. Again, you're not pressing into the finger, but you're just touching at that first crease. That's the basic posture for basic strumming. But what's more important is the way that that hand moves through the air, the path that it traces through the air. And here we're going to talk about what not to do and then what to do. First, what not to do. I don't recommend what I call the doorknob strum. I don't recommend this twisting motion. Here's what the twisting motion sounds like. Notice that it's not very loud and it's not very controlled. I'm having trouble because it makes this kind of arced path, and I'm not hitting all the strings with the same force. Also, it's after a while this twisting motion will probably give me tendonitis, and I'm never going to get it very fast because I'm using the small muscles of my arm as opposed to some of the bigger muscles in the upper arm and the shoulder. So that's the doorknob strum out. The other one that I don't recommend is the gavel, or the hammer, where you're coming down with a lot of force, but your forearm and your wrist are locked together. This might give you a lot of volume, but it's not very, well, there's not a lot of finesse, right? And at some point, you're going to miss. You're going to miss and you're going to hit the uke with your finger really hard. It's going to hurt. I just don't recommend it. Okay, that sort of order in the court kind of strum is not great. So what do I recommend in terms of path, the path that the hand traces through the air? What I recommend is a combination of those two. It's not totally the twist of the door handle, and it's not the cleaving motion of the gavel strum. What I recommend is a combination of those two. This ends up being quite a complex motion, and it could be very difficult to describe. We'd need, a slow motion camera and a bunch of mumbo jumbo to explain this very complex motion. But the best way I've heard this described in very simple terms is just imagine that you have a little bit of paint on the end of your finger, and you're trying to get that paint off the end of your finger. So you end up having a gentle kind of whipping motion at the end, which combines the power of that hammer technique and the twist of the door handle. And that gives you a really nice sounding strum. Now you hear how clear that is. It's clear because I'm hitting all the strings nearly simultaneously. You're not hearing each string individually. You're not hearing this. Right? You're hearing them almost simultaneously because of that little bit of a whip crack at the end of the strum. But I'm still getting lots of power because I'm using the arm and the motion starts from the shoulder. And that's what I recommend for the path of the hand through the air. Third, we're going to look at position, where to make contact with the string. Now, I'm going to jump right to my recommendation here and say that I consider, if you hadn't noticed already, I consider that this part here where the neck and the body meet, I think this is the sweet spot. I think this is where it sounds best, and it also feels good to play right there. Don't take my word for it though. I think you should try to strum all over the place and see which one feels best and sounds best to you. I like this sound. But let's try it in other places and see how it sounds and how it feels. Well, I'll see how it feels. You can see how it sounds. If I take my hand and I move it down to, say, below the sound hole, what do I get here? I get a very loud sound. It's a little too loud for me. I think it's a bit too brittle. And also you can hear my finger catching, especially on the way up, because the strings down here are so much more tight. There's more tension in the string, and it has more likelihood of catching my finger and getting my finger stuck in between the strings. And okay, I could probably practice that for hours and hours and get it smoother, but I don't really like the sound, so I'm probably not going to practice that for hours and hours. Let's look at the other extreme, where I go up to closer to my fretting hands. Let's see what I get up there. Okay, I'm not suggesting that you're actually going to strum up here, but I'm just trying to compare the different contact points to show you what a difference it can make. Here, it actually feels pretty good because the action of the string is so low at this point. But as you can tell, probably through the computer speakers here or on your headphones, the sound is kind of muffled. And it's a little bit quieter, a little too mellow for my liking. That's not really what I'm going for. So let me show you these in sequence. I'll start here and I'll move my hand closer to what I think of as the sweet spot, and then I'll go past, and you can hear the sound change over time. So here we go. And back to the sweet spot. See, I just keep on coming back to this same place in terms of making contact for these basic strums. I think that's the place to hang out. The other thing to consider is that that's where my hand just falls naturally when I hold the ukulele like this. When I put the instrument in the crook of my arm there, this is where my hand ends up being. It's very comfortable and it sounds really good. A lot of people ask me, what size of instrument should I get? Should I get a soprano? Should I get a concert? Should I get a tenor? And they often look to the left hand to make their decision. What's the stretch between the frets? But consider this, that the right hand and the right arm have as much to do with that decision as anything else. If you hold an instrument in the crook of your arm and your strumming hand ends up being right here where the neck and the body meet, then you've probably got the instrument that's the right size for you. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at here is pressure. How much force is in the strum? Now there's one very simple rule here, and that is as you get faster, you also get lighter. Okay, so let's say I'm really digging into something slow and bluesy. I can afford to give a lot of pressure, a lot of force on each one of those hits. Because I'm moving slowly and I want that heaviness to it. But if I start to speed up, then I'm starting to lighten my touch. If I get faster again, it gets lighter again. And if I get super fast, I'm hardly touching the strings at all. I mean, this is something that, I can't communicate through this video, but take my word for it, when I go super fast, it's just a feather touch against the strings. And the volume, surprisingly, across all four of those tempos, the volume was almost the same. When I was digging in and going slow, all the way through to when I was going really fast and just with a feather touch. Interestingly, the volume across all of those was pretty much the same, because what you lose in pressure, you gain in the speed of the attack. So that's the trade-off, and that's what makes it work. Even though you're touching very, very lightly at the fast tempo, because your hand is moving that much faster, it translates to more sound coming out of the instrument. So that's the rule there. As you get faster, you also must get lighter. If you don't, everything will bog down, your finger will get caught in the strings, and it's just not a good scene. Okay, so there are the four components that go into the perfect strum. You've got posture, you've got path, you've got position, and finally pressure. I hope that that's been helpful for you, and if it has, if you've enjoyed this lesson, you'll probably enjoy the lessons at the Ukulele Way. That's where I get to work with you to teach you the art and science of solo ukulele, how to take all the parts in a piece and play them simultaneously on one instrument. It's free to join, and you have nothing to lose, so come on over and have a look at theukuleleway.com. I hope to see you there, and until the next time, keep on strumming.